So a ton has happened on the SBF front just today, and so we are going to unpack what had happened. First is that Sam is being called to testify in front of the U.S. Senate Banking Committee. Second is that it turns out the block was taking secret money from Sam Bankman-Fried through Alameda loans. So yeah, lots to cover in this video. Now, to kick things off, if you guys remember back to December 4th, Maxine Waters in the House Committee of Financial Services tweeted at Sam, and they said, SBF, we appreciate that you've been candid in your discussions about what happened at FTX. Your willingness to talk to the public will help the company's customers, investors, and others. To that end, we would welcome your participation in our hearing on the 13th. To which Sam replied, Representative Waters in the House Committee of Financial Services, once I have finished learning and reviewing what happened, I would feel like it was my duty to appear before the committee and explain. I'm not sure that will happen by the 13th, but when it does, I will testify. So a lot of people just took this as, okay, Sam's going to dodge testifying on the 13th of December, so this month. He's going to, who knows when he'll actually testify. And to me, this whole response from Sam is total bullcrap. What this says to me is like, look, I'm trying to put together my story so that it doesn't look like I'm, committing fraud. I think that's what's going on here. They're trying to piece that all together because I don't know how something like this blows up and then but you don't know, which is like what Sam has been saying, like, oh, I know what happened, but I don't know what happened. So at this point, a lot of people thought that Sam testifying was dead in the water. It wasn't going to happen. However, on December 5th, Maxine Waters replies to Sam Bankman-Fried and says, based on your role as CEO and your media interviews over the past few weeks, it's clear to us that the information you have thus far is sufficient for testimony. So basically calling BS on Sam, saying like, look, you've been telling your story to all the media companies and everybody else. We think you've got enough to come in and have a conversation with us. So basically calling Sam out, kind of asking, but really telling Sam to come testify on the 13th. Sam then replies and he says, I still do not have access to much of my data, professional or personal. So there's a limit to what I will be able to say, and I won't be as helpful as I'd like. But as the committee thinks it would be useful, I am willing to testify on the 13th. I will try to be helpful during the hearing and to shed what light I can on FTX US's solvency and American customers, pathways that could return value to users internationally, what I think led to the crash, and my own failings. Now, I want you to pay particular attention to the first part, FTX US's solvency. So it sounds like he's only going to talk about FTX US because, that one is okay, right? So if he can only talk about FTX US and not FTX International, that's the FTX US appears to be solvent. That's what Sam keeps saying over and over again. 3, I had thought of myself as a model CEO who wouldn't become lazy or disconnected, which made it that much more destructive when I did. I'm sorry. Hopefully people can learn from the differences between who I was and who I could have been. Now, so it's official at this point. Sam is going to testify on the 13th, but I don't know how much new information we're going to get from Sam on that meeting. What I'm really curious to see is the questions that end up being asked by the Senate to Sam. Now, they could have a strategy here where they try to pin Sam in a corner and get some answers out of him via their conversation, because in the past, what we've seen is that Sam has a really hard time answering pressuring questions. Now, the problem that has been happening is that people don't know how to follow up these pressing questions. And when they do, like we saw with CoffeeZilla, Sam just leaves. But in this case, Sam won't be able to leave. He's going to have to sit there and testify. So if a hard question comes his way and we start getting the ums and ahs and the, him reciting the question to himself, he's not going to be able to just walk out of the room. He's going to have to sit there and bear the brunt. So I'm really curious to see how this whole thing goes. If he comes out there and just pretends like he doesn't know anything about anything, he's the guy that ran a company and has zero knowledge of anything in the company. That's been like what he's basically been saying. Are we going to get that, Sam, or are they going to ask him some actually tough questions, some pressuring questions that put Sam in the, oh man, I don't have a response for this mode. So we'll see what comes of that. Again, next thing is that it turns out the block was taking loans from Alameda Research Now, this has been something that has blown up all over Twitter. For those of you guys who don't know, The Block is a crypto news organization. They are very prominent in the crypto space, and lots of their employees are prominent in the space and well known on Twitter. So this was a big shock for a lot of people. Now, Sheriff Fisher comes out and she gives us the breakdown of what actually happened. So she says, exclusive crypto news site The Block has been secretly funded for over a year with money funneled to its CEO LLCs from Sam Bankman-Fried's Alameda Research. There's 3 loans in total for $12 million and $15 million, or $12 million and $15 million loans went to The Block. $16 million was used by the CEO to buy real estate in the Bahamas. Point 2 says the site has never disclosed any connections to Sam Bankman-Fried or Alameda. Employees had no idea. They just found out today. The CEO resigned and is stepping off the board. The company will look to restructure to buy out the CEO's stake. He is currently a majority shareholder. This is from Axios. Now, the article that she links here goes more into detail on that. I'll link it down below if you guys want to read it. But that's huge. And I know this was detrimental to a lot of people because there was a lot of employees that were very critical of FTX, and they were writing articles about FTX and really cutting into what Sam was saying. One of the big names is Larry Cermak, who's in charge of research over at The Block. And he tweeted out, he said, "I am proud of the 30-plus person research team I built and will keep going with the new Block leadership. It's really effing sucks, and I'm completely exhausted. We'll be doing what truly matters, and that's less Twitter and more time with my 4-month-old daughter and my wife." The next big name is Mike Dudas, who I believe is part owner of The Block. I could be wrong here, but I believe that's his relation to The Block. And it says, horrifying. Devastated beyond belief. I was given less than an hour heads up by the CEO of The Block. If you think you're shocked, I'm literally lost right now. And the big one is Frank Chaparro, who is, a lot of people love Frank, and I like Frank. I don't think that any of these people really knew what was going on. Frank in particular had meetings with SBF and was really tearing into him on the interviews after the FTX collapse. So I don't think that any of these people knew or received any of this money, but Frank put together a thread for us, and it says, "I'm absolutely gutted by this news," which was briefed to the company this afternoon. "Underpinning my shock are feelings of utter disgust and betrayal by Mike's actions, greed, lack of disclosure. He's literal scum. He kept every single one of us in the dark. I put my trust in him to run The Block as an independent media entity, as CEO and majority shareholder, and was misled. This is really painful because I've put many years into shaping The Block into what it is today. I also thought of him as a friend," which is very true. Frank does lots and lots of stuff for The Block. He is constantly putting out good news articles and content and things of that nature. And again, I haven't noticed any biases in Frank's, what he's put out there. I don't think that Frank knew at all. I haven't noticed there was no favoritism towards FTX or anything in his articles. So again, I really do believe that these people are disconnected from the news that the CEO was basically taking this money for himself and via secretive loans that the company didn't disclose. 3, had I known about this, I would not have only called it out and disputed his actions, but called for an immediate change in leadership. Putting aside the FTX meltdown, there is no excuse for this deception and disregard for the 160 people who work at The Block. My track record as an independent reporter in the crypto space over the last 5 years speaks for itself. That's evident as recently as my no-holds-barred interview with Sam Bankman-Fried just last week, which that's what I was just talking about. So Frank did this interview with Sam, and he did not hold back, which is not something you would expect to see out of someone who is taking money from Sam Bankman-Fried. 5, what I can say to you all is he steps down as CEO is that I'm angry and hurt, but more committed than ever to my job as a journalist and doing what I can to help my news colleagues during this time to report on the industry without fear or bias, just as they always have. So, yeah, lots and lots of big stuff there. And then we get a tweet talking about how Sam planned to fund the gaps. If you guys remember, he kept saying that they had a plan. They had, I think it was $6 million or $8 million or billion, dollars sitting on the sidelines, ready to invest in, back into FTX and make people whole. And Rand Neumer tweets, which this is one of the very few times I will use Rand Neumer as a source, because he's another guy that I'm not a huge fan of, but he says, fire up the FTX exchange, issue new FTT token, distribute the token to creditors and depositors, accrue 100% of the profits to token holders. It will be the biggest exchange in the world, and users will be made more than whole. So this is, I think what he's like doing is like kind of quoting Sam here. He's like summing up what Sam's strategy is. And so Sam's strategy was to take and issue more FTT tokens and then distribute the money that they earned from, releasing more FTT tokens back to holders, creditors, and depositors. And Sam confirms this. He says, this is tweeted in reply to Rand. It says, I continue to think that this would be a productive path for parties to explore. I hope that the teams in place will do so. Here's the problem with that. If you go out and you issue billions of dollars of a token that's worth nothing, you're not accomplishing anything. There has to be people that are willing to buy the token for that to happen. So I don't even know how this would even work. Like, this doesn't even make any sense in my eyes. You're gonna dump on a token that's already been dumped. Like, you're not gonna get any money out of that. I don't know how he thinks that this is a sound plan. But yeah, guys, so it has been a wild day in crypto. I'll continue to keep you guys updated on these situations. If this is your first time to the channel, please like and subscribe. And with that being said, guys, I will see you all next time.